Rochelle, that you offered him a head job 2 weeks after we broke up? And he said no. Because he's my best mate. And you're not fucking that Rochelle. You more think that you are, but you're not. But number one, Robert. Yeah, sure. Your best mate Timo didn't get with me. What else? Denial. Oh. And Robert, I do have that. And then some. Ting. Why don't you and your little best mate, Timo, sound this out together? Because Rory, maybe you might need his help. Because I know for a fact he is much, much better at some things than you. So, I was just on the Robo 93's channel and I noticed one of your favourite videos looks like it was filmed in your bathroom. Because Robo, I would recognise those rank bath mats and those filthy, rank, disgusting, feral, dirty terracotta tiles anywhere, alright? So I clicked on it and it took me to another channel called Robo Foot Fix Hero. And I noticed heaps of uploaded videos, Robo, all filmed in your little ensuite that your daddy built for you. And I know where my pink fluffy slippers went. You smell them so you could put fucking on YouTube with cream. That's right. And anyways, so the only reason, Robert, I can think of why you favoured that video on the Robo 93 channel is because you thought you were actually signed in as Foot Fix Hero.
Okay, so that's that. So here the video response coupled with sharper cuts back and forth between personae accommodated plot development and more importantly a dialogue connecting these different subselves. In the late 90s it was proposed that it was really psychologically healthy to have a multifaceted self because it helped the individual respond to various demanding different contemporary kind of life situations as they emerged. However, the conflict between Robbo and Rochelle made me reflect on the inner turmoil that may be caused by trying to connect discordant identities within the oneself. And this kind of inner turmoil by trying to combine contradictory identities is something that I intend to explore further and haven't totally articulated yet within my work. But this piece did make me think of self-narrativity, and self-narrativity refers to, how one links their different identities and experiences together in order to author a coherently storied self. And storing the self, you can exclude or include certain storylines, self-histories or identities. So there's a strong editorial process to it. And this idea gave me a clue about how different subselves may negotiate together in occupying the one space, I suppose, and kind of provided me with new artistic material. Within the video piece All Myselves on YouTube number 2, the subtle relationship that emerges between Dharmapada and Shelley starts to suggest how one might combine with an alter ego in an effort to more positively try and story their self. Consequent performances from Shelley showed Dharmapada's kind of reflective, meditative influence, and you can see it slowly taking force.
Okay, so some of you might have noticed that I haven't really been on YouTube as much lately, talking about current, my MJ news currently that's happening around us, and the reason for that isn't because I still love MJ, Michael, I still love you, thank you so much. It's not because of that, it's just because last time I was talking about how I was really anxious about the whole MJ situation, about him having passed and all that kind of thing, and so I decided that the best thing for me would be to take some time out from YouTube and really step back and kind of consider my feelings. I even went to a psychologist and she was really helpful. She was like, everyone grieves and all of that kind of thing, but what kind of positive and constructive thing can you get from this? So I just thought, how can I give back? How can I be positive and move on in a positive, constructive way? And I'm actually a librarian, and every Tuesday I read to a kid group, and it's really fun. And I thought when I was a kid, I was always the happiest girl, singing and dancing MJ tunes. I asked a couple of the parents, would they be interested in me teaching their kids how to do some MJ classics like the dancing and the singing, and they were all like, Shelley, we would be really happy for that to happen. And so I've been really excited about that. Okay, so Ari and Priya and Finn, they're just enjoying some snacks that I laid out earlier, and they're just getting ready to do some dancing. Scratch on, but don't worry, not really going to scratch anyone, it's just, we're just using that. Okay, so hold your hands up like this, and then go like this with your legs, so walk. That's really good, that's really good. and that's good, Ari, you can do that, that's what I saw, you can do zombie walks on your hands. Okay, but so what we do is as we okay, but you can do that as well. Okay, that's really good. I think it's really creative, and I think that we're learning that fun here today. So I think that really works too. Okay, okay. Can you dance like a zombie with that scary face? Can you go? I think that we've really done Michael proud. Okay, so the kids have just left, and I just feel so happy with the outcome.
Okay, so in reflexively responding to the negative comments such as the one that Shelley got from Robbo, Shelley chooses to incorporate her Dharmapada alter ego in restoring herself as less anxious and perhaps more positive. I mean, she's still quite manic, but this does reinforce the reflexivity inherent in vlogging as well. So here I also feel that self-narrativity is enabled by so I feel that the self-narrativity enabled by editing present in my video works. This makes me think of the current internet phenomenon of the mashup or the mix-up. And the mashup is when two or more texts, whether it be music like songs or videos, are edited and combined to create one harmonious creative product. citing my practice as an example, I propose that the accumulative archival YouTube channel facilitates identity remixing, which in turn can help the individual make coherent sense of their self-story. And to use Chris Crocker as an example of this again, in one of his most recent video works titled From Boy to Girl to Woman to Man, he's actually strung together stills from various videos of his posted on YouTube over the years. And you can kind of see his oscillation back and forth between male and female and other gender roles. And the fact that, this is a great example of what I'm talking about, the YouTube channel being reflexive, because, he's referred back to all of these different videos from the past and taken the identities that he wants and put them together as a way of kind of, storing a self and creating sense out of his self-multiplicity. And I think also, just as an aside, this is where YouTube could be really relevant in extending performance art thematically, because it could extend comments on self-multiplicity beyond statement to reflection on how one compiles their various subselves. And so just to talk about my most recent work, which was a draft piece, this isn't finished at all, in trying to kind of emulate this DJ self-remixer, I've experimented with different formats of presenting the live performances. So here I'm behind 4 different computer monitors, and I transition between various persona quite a lot in this performance, and each monitor is dedicated to a specific persona. So I'm kind of like a DJ remixing sense of self and trying to amalgamate it into some kind of narrative, I suppose. So that's where I'm really at with my practice, and I want to continue on with that to kind of articulate it further and make it clearer. But that's pretty much the end of this talk. And if any of you would like a reference list from today's talk, please come up to me afterwards and I'll get your email address off you so I can email it out to you. So that concludes the talk.
Thank you very much, Meredith. Traditionally, we have a few minutes left. I have the room booked till 6. We normally go till 5:30. And maybe starting next time, one of you could help me. We might also organize some tea or some refreshments, which we didn't have today. So please, Meredith, this offering so much, to consider various aspects of, your talk. And I'm sure our audience has questions. I was so intrigued that you brought up this Crocker, because I didn't even know about him until I read about him in the TDR, in this rather respectful cultural performance journal. They published this article on Crocker when he did Defense on Britney, yeah?
Yep.
And so I went on YouTube to actually see it, and you mentioned this notion of, and this is obviously perhaps over the edge, kind of ironic sense of an amateurish performance, but your term of the amateur versus professional, what did you all think about that sort of distinction or that kind of juxtaposition as a theoretical introduction? Do you remember her speaking about that in the beginning? Because I wonder how amateurish that actually is, or whether it's all quite manipulative and in a sense it's rehearsed, no?
Yes, a lot of my stuff is, and it's quite interesting that you mention that, because probably, looking at a lot of Chris Crocker's work, you can see that some of it has been quite rehearsed as well. And that is a really...
Or intentional, or let's say, it knows certain effects, right?
It does, and that's the thing about the YouTuber who is a product of Web 2.0 culture. As a collective kind of society, we are becoming performers in our own right, and really developing skills that perhaps, that I agree with you, there's the distinction between amateur and professional is really quite blurring in our current context as people really gather skills. and learn how to
refer
perform.
back to the notion of an actor who has actor training, yeah,
Yes,
a dancer with dancer training, whereas people who are performing in front of the camera basically are performing, yeah?
Yes, yep.
But I would like to hear maybe your responses or comments or criticisms, so I open the floor, yeah?
Yep.
A couple of things. One is I'm very curious about the fact that in some ways you're a professional pretending to be an amateur because you're acting these people. It's not you. You're not Meredith. It's Shelley and Robert and whoever. But I'm also very interested in how it makes a new narrative form. It's kind of like it's more like a TV soap opera than like a performance, because it's kind of endless and you go back and something else is happening. And so I wondered what you had to say about the narrative, creation of the narrative as well as just the selves. And the other thing I was thinking about was we're talking about performance and video. When you mentioned Sadie Benning, I've also thought of her as a video artist rather than a performance artist, because she doesn't ever perform live. And I was thinking from the performer's point of view, it's a very different thing to perform to a camera and to perform live. And I just wondered how you had something to say about that in different ways you do.
Yeah, it is interesting. I suppose because I've always videoed myself and I regard myself as a performance artist, perhaps that's why I identified her as one. Particularly in, I thought that vloggers were performers much more. I actually came across her work about a couple of months ago, so it's really new, my discovery of her work, and I suppose I'm understanding her as a performer in the framework of understanding vloggers as performers as well. So yeah, it is really interesting, the divide between the live and the mediated and what classifies as performance. I suppose I err on the side that they're both performance, but they are definitely both different. They come with their own set of expectations and yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned the series as well, like comparing them to a television series where you can see a development. Because I suppose in terms of my project where I am kind of looking at self-development in a sense, I kind of cottoned on to doing a series and perhaps as a symbolic way of reflecting on how one might develop their self. And it also allows me to explore the technical allowances of YouTube and how they actually facilitate kind of self-discovery. And also I'll just go back to your first point where you said that these personae kind of aren't Meredith. And it's interesting because they are and they aren't, because I feel that they came from me, and it's quite eerie, the similarities I've noticed that they have with me after performing them for a while, and who knows how much of that I've absorbed from them. But a really kind of weird thing happened when I was performing Shelley. Those little pictures that she had on her bedroom wall of Michael Jackson, I printed them out from the internet, and I had this major deja vu. And I realised when I was 16 I'd done that with Jeff Buckley as well, when I was kind of mourning his passing. I'd printed out these little internet pictures, stuck them up on my bedroom wall right near my bed so I could be near him. And I really just feel she's a reflection of my kind of neurotic, obsessive, anxious self. So I really relate to them as well, because I switch off with someone like Robbo. I don't empathise with him as much, perhaps because he's kind of more of a shallow stereotype and I have trouble relating to him. But they are me and they're not me, so I feel like I'm acting and I'm not, and I suppose because I've never been trained in acting in that sense, I don't see myself as a professional. But yeah, sorry, I've gone on. Yeah, good point, so.
Excellent. Yes, Alison.
This is sort of coming back to what you were saying, Johannes, about the sort of blurring of amateur and professional. But you mentioned the authentic at one point. I'm wondering, because I think there's a lot of talk at the minute about figure rounding be authentic and authenticity. How are you problematizing that or approaching that with this?
Yeah, I think it's, again, one of those things where I'm a bit on the fence with it, because I think that we've evolved in our kind of internet culture, that people recognise that authenticity may be presented on the internet and may not be. So I think that authenticity is very fluid, and I don't think that you can, I suppose I'm wary about if you can ever actually attain it, or if it's just an idea. And there's definite elements here of authenticity, but there's definite elements of totally not being authentic as well. So I find it a really interesting concept, and I think it's going to have to be a section that I really kind of write about a little bit more. But yeah, I think that as a kind of internet savvy audience, you know, Web 2.0 culture is aware of authenticity issues. Yeah.
It would be historically interesting to look at where these discussions come from or where they start, because I think before, maybe in performance, it was something that they worried about in music. Yeah. At what point did rock lose its sort of claim to authenticity and so on and so forth, or independent indie bands and so on.
Yeah.
And in terms of, is it connected to the notion of truth? Because there's this young chap that you had in the beginning who says, I'm going to tell you everything. And then he begins to say, I was molested. Is this also related to the question of, do we actually believe any of it?
I think, look, it's come up in a whole lot of things. We just recently, a combination of things, with a conference on post-traumatic theatre, like Montfort was talking about version 1.0 in Sydney, and CMI, the Maritime Incident, and kind of that use of verbatim material and what you're doing with that.
Yep.
And then also something I was reading about queer dramaturgies and kind of merging with applied practices and gay companies and who you have to be gay to perform it, and all this kind of questioning about authenticity. But I didn't think that had been. I had lots and lots of questions about the use of the word. So it's just it's because it's come in a lot recently, and I think that actually, particularly with the sort of verbatim documentary,
verbatim theatre,
all that side,
confessional
I think this is to be
witness
point in questioning the authentic and the relationship back to truth, really.
And we have documentary filmmakers here. I'm sure that discussion was done in documentary film, that it's actually also a fiction, a genre of fiction, right, Christina? Documentary film, Any questions from our students? Here.
Just a comment. Initially when starting, we were talking about amateurism. What I thought when I was looking at those things were it lended itself very much to comedy and almost like psychiatric kind of comedy behavior. And that made me think, you were talking about being amateur, but then you've got professionals who do the same thing. And you certainly have professionals, I've seen like interviews, some of them will actually improvise, so the work is not rehearsed at all, and they improvise and then they're going with that. So I don't know, to me it's almost like they're kind of borrowing maybe the methodologies of each other. And I don't think the distinction is necessarily that strong. And just one other quick point, I really liked when it was Hurt You, because you had like the echo and then the song, it actually brought like a kind of life and some kind of other element to the video projection, because then you had the sound around. So that was I think an interesting kind of spatial setup.
Okay.
For the performance, so it's interesting.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, the echo is I suppose, as you're saying that, I was just thinking, the echo could be kind of read as, the echo of the self in different mediated kind of environments. So yeah, there was a definite kind of layering there. Yeah, thank you.
Miss Lara Franco?
Thank you. Well, I just wanted to ask you, Meredith, about I know the audience, the followers, because, well, it reminds me a little, there's a blog character in Mexico, he's called Whatever Tomorrow or something like that. And I haven't seen it, actually. I know he's really popular, and he's like a lot of followers, and he's just the boy that, I mean, when he was interviewed, he said that he created this character just for fun and with his friends or something like that. But actually, he became really famous. I mean, at least in Mexico, and I think it's with W, but I'm not sure. Whatever.
Okay. Yep.
And well, it was like a boom, you know, like everyone was talking about it, and now they're like doing live shows and maybe something like that. Now that I'm listening to you, I will check this guy to see. I mean, which is the like maybe some similarities or something. But specifically, yeah, I would like to ask, like, what is the response of the people? I mean, because of course these characters, they're like responding well to each other. But maybe there's like someone in the real life, like.
Are there comments at the bottom?
Yes, there is. Yeah, it's quite. The interaction I've had have been personal messages sent to my channel, particularly a few kind of deviant ones for Footfix Hero, but also comments left at the bottom of the videos. Shelley's been the one who's had the most comments left, and it's quite interesting because from the comments I deducted that it seemed like she was getting taken seriously, and I was quite surprised initially because I just didn't think that would happen. I thought that it would look fake.
This is the problem, isn't it?
Yeah, it's interesting. But yeah, the interaction from the other vloggers really kind of, it wasn't just like Robbo joined in. So it was instigated by other vloggers who left text comments, and it was stuff like, OMG, why do you keep on tucking your hair behind your ears? And one year I actually participated in character in Thrill the World, which is where it's an attempt to break the world record of the most people simultaneously across the earth dancing Michael Jackson's Thriller. And I participated in character in that live and had it filmed, and posted it up onto YouTube later, and all the Perth people who went and looked at that because they wanted to see footage of it were really encouraging of Shelley, like, great video, Shelley, oh excellent, I didn't see it from that angle. And so there has been the occasional encouragement and Michael Jackson fans becoming friends with Shelley, which I really enjoy. But Robbo and Rochelle, nobody really looks at, like, really they've had like 5 views. So some things really take off, and it's interesting that you mentioned the Whatever Tomorrow. Things just go viral, and you don't know what is going to and what isn't going to. And yeah, so some things have been really quiet and other things have been quite busy. Yeah.
It's fascinating also to think of that then as a sort of different kind of art form or medium form, the ongoing and also the durational aspect of it, the consecutive aspect of it. Because I recall, Fiona, that in terms of the venue and where encounter things, Sadie Benning was featured in 1993-4 at the Gay Lesbian Film and Video Festival in Chicago, and I was looking at these black and white films for the first time in a particular context. And certainly for me that was a video artist, doing a kind of an autobiographical or feminist take on her sense of identity, and at that time there was issues of identity politics and so on. But these Nosotros Somos, what's his name, Whatever Tomorrow, is interesting if there's now an internet community catching up every day, let's say, or every week on someone's ongoing thing, and why we still have 3 million people watching Big Brother is another phenomenon. I don't understand it.
Yeah, it's quite interesting actually. I was watching the British Big Brother last night, and it got axed in Australia probably after about 3 seasons. So yeah, it's quite an interesting phenomenon to see what works in various countries. Yeah, it is, and that's the thing. I mean, I see things like YouTube as an extension of reality TV because it celebrates banality and has kind of really made it a big subject of reference, and has encouraged people to become performers. We've all got our own diary rooms now, so yeah.
Any other last commentaries, critiques, questions?
Something site like Ustream, or you can video yourself and upload and
Okay, yeah.
nicely. And do you have any plans to explore the field other than like filming yourself beforehand and putting?
Yeah, that's quite interesting. And I suppose if I did utilise Ustream, is it called? I hadn't actually heard of it, so thank you. But yeah, it is really interesting, and it kind of makes me think of the live performances that I've done, although they're heavily kind of edited beforehand anyway. Yeah, I hadn't actually thought of it. It could definitely be an area of investigation. I suppose I'm quite interested in some of the premeditated aspects of YouTube and the sense of control that you can have there. So I think at the moment that's where I'm at, because I'm interested in the editorial self and kind of pre-getting yourself right before you kind of put it out there. But that would be very interesting, and I think would bring on board a different kind of theme. Yeah.
You want to like into more like live or maybe
Yep.
it's kind of different. I think it's more like relevant to explore that field rather
Yeah,
than,
definitely. Yeah. Yeah, it is quite interesting, yeah. And I'm not sure if my final works yet are going to be just video based or live. And if they do kind of take on a live aspect, then that's definitely something worth considering, yeah.
This might actually be a banal, a technical question, but I was just trying to imagine when you are doing the face in front of the laptop or in front of a camera, you have these edit cuts, these quick cuts. How do you actually stop the camera? Would you use a remote, or how do you do this?
I don't actually stop the camera, so all of that footage that you saw there,
afterwards.
That's been edited afterwards. So
you run it through an editing software?
But in reality, on the actual sites...
Not in-camera editing next door?
No, I don't, no. But on the actual Persona sites, a lot of those performances are rambling. You know, some of them go on for 10 minutes. And these have been quite heavily edited to kind of form a storyline. And they kind of got more of a sense of traditional entertainment because of that. So the other ones, like there's humour in this, but when you see the whole on the channel, you know, it's just as rambling and kind of as anybody else's, and has moments of interest and moments of, yeah, so it is quite interesting.